Hi, everyone. Welcome to Move More, Worry Less. I'm your host, Paige Festa, the founder and designer at 13 Fit Apparel. Today, I have April Frazier with me. She is a confidence coach and she is the founder of Frwd Confidence Coaching. So, April, if you would like to say hi to our audience and give a little background on who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be here with you, Paige, and thank you so much. It's always good to mix it up with good energy and like-minded people. This word of resonance has been with me. But side note, I'm just really excited to be here. I am a confidence coach. I typically work with entrepreneurs and women who are on a big quest to some awakening, some piece of their lives that they're looking to unlock. And it's a great job. I love it. It's the work I would do if I were never paid. I would absolutely still do it.
I love that. So, I want to talk a little bit about what you do and then backtrack into your journey into what you do. So, can you tell our listeners and me, I guess, what a confidence coach is and does?
Yeah. Confidence coaching is, it's sometimes people think of it like life coaching. And it can be. It can also feel a little bit like therapy, as is true with some coaching, right? Some conversations. But mainly what it is, I help people remember their inner power. We oftentimes are socialized to defer our own inner authority to the authority of our parents and our job and what people say we should be doing, what people say we should be thinking and feeling, and all those things. So, really, the inner confidence comes from realigning to your own inner authority and your own purpose and leading from that place. It takes a tremendous act of courage to lead from inner authority, understanding that that's not an act of selfishness when you are aware of who you are and what's important to you, what your purpose is in the context of the larger context, and then you can lead from that place. That's an act of courage. So that's essentially what I help people do is remember, align to their gifts, their strengths, turning their weaknesses into strengths, align to it, and then lead their lives, both their businesses. Typically, my clients are entrepreneurs, but their businesses and their lives, their relationships, it comes across in every aspect. And that's what I help people unlock.
So, what does that look like with a typical client? Is it, sessions of an hour that you talk to them? Is it how interactive is it? I don't even know the right question to ask, but what does it look like when you're working with a client?
Yeah. Primarily it's by conversation.
Yeah.
Of course, with COVID and everything, it's had to be over Zoom, generally speaking. I think we're going to be climbing out of that now. I'm hosting some in-person events. But conversations are so powerful, Paige. And you know this, you have a podcast, you're an entrepreneur. You know how your world looks one way and then 30 seconds later in a conversation, it looks totally different. And you realize, oh, there's power here you hadn't activated, or there's possibility here you just didn't see right before. And most of the work then is through the conversation. Some of it is through, I help clients to journey inwards, the different reading material, resources, journaling. Can't stress that enough. It's gone kind of cliche in our times, but it's so important because that's how we anchor into what am I really feeling, wanting, desiring. Also, what am I fearing or loving that's holding me back from aligning to that purpose. And conversations it's fun. It's really fun for me. I try to make it fun for my clients, and it's heavy at the same time because
Right.
part of my job is to get people to slow down. I'm, I'm basically paid to slow people down so they can notice what's on their own inner energy, if you will, so that they
Right.
can anchor to it.
That's amazing. I want to talk about how you got to this point into launching a business for confidence coaching. And I know you have a very inspirational and I can't think of the other word I wanted to use, story. So, if you want to tell us a little bit about your past and what led you to starting your company.
Yeah. I started out I went to college. I got a college degree in computer science, and it was tough, Paige. I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? It was tough. It was a tough curriculum. I I really only got into it. Wasn't aware of this at the moment, but I really only got into it because I'm that human that I have a rebel kind of complex in there. So if you tell me that I can't, then I'm just gonna show you that I can. And what they said was, as a woman and as a woman of color, I would always have a job, but it would be really hard and probably couldn't, do it. I totally internalized that and was like, I'm gonna show you that again.
Right.
So I went off and I did that, got a job, it was great, money was great, okay, but it was tough. And in retrospect, it really wasn't aligned to my inner purpose, but I didn't know that at the time. I stayed in computer science for some time. I went ahead, I got jobs. I was about year 18, honestly, working, coding and different things. And the whole time, really honestly, Paige, I noticed it in year one when I was working that I hated that job. It was not what I wanted to do at all. But then I'm stuck. I have college loans and I have a mortgage and I've got, I have income that I need and student loans, right? So I was stuck there for a really long time. And honestly, I would tell you that if you'd asked me, I was happy, or so I thought. Then my husband of 13 years at the time came to me and he said, April, he started to cry and he said, April, I need you to let me go. And my world was busted open because I thought we were happy. And turned out he hadn't been happy for a very long time, but he didn't tell me. And somehow I had noticed. I had normalized so many things now that in retrospect, absolutely were signs that he was not happy. And at that point, he didn't want to try to work it out. He just wanted out. So for me, that was a major wedge experience, if you will, in my consciousness where I thought I understood my world. I thought I could trust my world that I created. And then I realized in this experience that actually my world was entirely or mostly a perceptive construct. I had chosen to make meaning of things that worked for me when in fact it wasn't really in line with reality. It was traumatic. It was terrible. I was, if you ever had your heart broken, that's one thing. But then having your heart broken by someone you think is your best friend and you think has loved you for so long, and then you find out for a long time that they haven't. So that actually led me. I woke up one morning and I said, I knew that I was really clear that I hated my job and I knew I couldn't stay. And I was like, how am I going to get myself out of this? Also in the flow of a breakup and have it. I woke up and I was like, I'm going to have to find some money because I have to quit. And I made my plan and I quit. And in that time, I came to health coaching and I just was, doing some research on like, what else would I do? That's the other reason that I didn't leave technology is because I thought I didn't know what else I would do. And that was a scary concept. What am I going to do? I have to stay until I find something else. Coaching is something I've always been doing. I didn't know there was a name for it. I didn't know people got paid for it. And it's something I love. So I started with health coaching and then I realized I needed to play a bigger game as helping others. And that's when it became pretty clear when my coach had me interview other people, and it became pretty clear that confidence was the thing that stood out to people, the questions that I would ask. And if I was in the room, people felt like that we could figure this out. And imagine the irony of that for a woman who didn't realize that her world was a construct, right? Still had this confidence. It's like the worst kind of arrogance. You don't know what you don't know, and yet you project confidence.
Right.
And it was in all of that. I call it the Great Awakening. That breakup and divorce prompted the Great Awakening of my life that helped me to see that I need to honor what I don't know, and I needed to obey my own inner authority that had been screaming for so long, but I didn't know how to authorize it or that there was an option to authorize it. And then that helped me want to free other people to see their purpose and really awaken to it, and then take that courageous act of obeying it in spite of whatever world they may have constructed that feels safe and they understood, but really not serving.
So how does somebody this, I mean, you experience this too, and I'm sure that your clients go through the same thing. So how does somebody realize their purpose or realize they're not actually listening to what it is that they want?
Yeah, the thing is that in my group coaching program for entrepreneurs, we talk about that. One of the pillars is that feelings are a signal. And this was true of myself, maybe you too. I wasn't taught to honor my feelings. I was always taught to do the logical thing, go get the degree, work till you're 65. Like it was classic baby boomer training. Now, no disrespect to baby boomers. My mom's a baby boomer. I love her. No disrespect, but it's classic training of like, follow the rules.
Right.
And I always felt that was wrong, but I didn't have an alternative. So to answer your question, I would say the body is always talking. It's always giving us the message. That's what it's designed to do, is give us information, but we are not always trained to listen. One thing I do with clients is teach them to anchor into your body so that you can notice what you're feeling. And I have one client who said to me, I don't feel anything. And then she said, wait. And 5-10 minutes later, she's like, wait, actually, I do feel something. And just over the time that we've been working together, she's like, no, I've started to notice, oh, there's a pain here. There's something feels stuck here in my throat. And noticing those signs, and then also noticing your feelings. A lot of times we may push past those things. A lot of my clients are fixers, if you will. So they're used to having all the answers. They're used to being the go-to person, to know everything, do everything. That is honestly a habit that can be exhausting, and hurtful to the person. The body signs are always there. So that's a long answer to say listening to the body and having a conversation, right? Because a lot of times there are hallmarks in a conversation that tell me that a person doesn't know their truest self, and they don't know, they don't realize that the signs are there.
Right. I want to go back to something that you said because I feel like I can relate to this and I can see it, how a lot of times I feel like our generation is a lot different than previous generations, where we're realizing that we can do what we want, and that going to school and getting a job and having that job for 40 years, retiring at 65 isn't really like the only path. And it's actually kind of hard to get into that path too, because jobs now aren't as secure as they used to be. Um, and people don't stay in jobs as long as they used to anyway. But I've definitely felt that pressure in my life, from more traditional people who think that, well, there's security in going to a full-time job and X, Y, and Z. And there's nothing wrong with it. I don't have anything against those people, but that's just, there's something to be said for the fact that you can do what you want. And especially now, like our generation is so different than previous generations, especially now, especially I feel like after like the pandemic and everything, where so many things have been moved to working from home, being on Zoom calls and stuff. It's given so much more flexibility and freedom in living the kind of dream that you want and having more of a work-life balance rather than spending your whole life working at a desk in a building. Like, and again, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do, but it's not the only option anymore. Yeah. I went on a rant about that, but yes.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. And I'm aware of how it can be difficult to intercept from that, whatever that training is. Like we all get training from our parents and our environment of like what you should do and what's right for you. And if you manage to have a home environment that's like, go figure it out, and give yourself the space to play, that's a privileged perspective, because usually parents want the best for their kids, and they usually have an idea what that best is, right? And no disrespect, that's you want the best, right, for your kids. At the same time, there's a sense of imprint. When you come from that place, you imprint on people what your expectations are, and what you think is best for them. And honestly, that's something that each person has to find on their own.
Right.
So with that imprint, whatever that may be, whatever generation, with that imprint, a lot of what I do, and what I think, yes, absolutely, millennials and what do you call them, Xeals now? X's? Z's? I'm not sure. My sister's an
It's not
Xeal.
one of the letters at the end of the alphabet.
The next generation, I think they're starting to see like, oh, there's not just one path, and I need to figure this out for myself.
Right.
And it's still an act of courage, because whatever happens, you still get an imprint from your environment, right? And deconditioning from that imprint is also a quest, a self-discovery
Right.
quest.
I was actually just reading last night. I'm reading The High Five Habit right now.
Oh,
And have you read it?
I haven't, but I'm curious now.
I'm not very far into it, but it talks about like high fiving yourself in the morning, like in the mirror, and like how it actually scientifically can help you with like confidence and all these things. Anyway, so she was saying something, hold on, I'm losing my train of thought. It was related to what you were just saying. Hmm. Oh well, we'll move on. Um,
But to your point about high-fiving yourself, like there
yeah.
is something to be said for having that positive moment, right? And that's what I'm
Mhm.
taking without having read the book, or
Yeah.
whatever. But just like the idea of that positivity spin, always starting your day with that, like, and also a can do kind of attitude, like, yes, what are the possibilities present here? That just really, yes,
Yeah.
that's always good.
Yeah. So what I've gathered from the book so far, which I'm sure you would find it interesting. Again, I'm not very far into it, so I don't know how great it is all the way through, but so far I'm really enjoying it. And it's talking about how number one, if you high five yourself in the mirror, that's like the one time during the day where you're focused on really yourself. You're not answering emails, you're not on a Zoom call, you're not talking to other people, you're by yourself and you can actually see yourself. And then it also talks about how the act of giving a high five, your entire life, you're conditioned to know that a high five is a positive thing and it's a positive action, not just a positive thought. So you're acting on something positive and that can carry you through the day and bring confidence into your day. So it's really interesting. And there's like science to back it up, which is also really cool. So, I mean, I'd recommend it based on,
Yeah.
the 15 pages I've read so far.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense to me. Just, I can imagine. I remember one time I was working with a coach, and I'm trying to explain what I do. And, when you're first doing it, honestly, you feel like anytime you're starting something new, you feel like you don't really know what you're doing, and you're wondering if people will know. Imposter totally comes up, right? You're just like, I
Right.
mean, I do, but I don't know what I'm doing. Do I have enough
Mhm.
experience? Do I have enough creds? Will people, right, trust me? The whole imposter thing came up, and I know I have the words, I'm saying the words, but they're just coming across, even to myself and to her, that just don't feel like I believe it,
Right.
right? So she says to me, she says, stand up. Like sometimes when you stand up and you're in, you step more into your power in that posture. And absolutely stood up and started, and it was just like flow
Yeah.
came. And it was so interesting to me that just that posture change. So I can easily imagine if you have that moment where you're anchored, you come into yourself and you are high fiving yourself, you're having that celebration moment for like being alive and what you're accomplishing and what you've already accomplished.
Mhm.
I can imagine that's just standing up can do it. Then absolutely,
Yeah.
I can imagine what it would be
Yeah.
like to have that
I
moment.
know. I keep telling myself I'm going to wake up and high five myself and then I forget. And then today I was getting ready for this podcast and I was in the mirror and I was like, I should high five myself. But my boyfriend was like walking around behind me and I was like, if he sees me high five in the mirror, I'm going to feel like such a dingus. So I didn't do it, but I'm like, I need to just start the habit because even the book says the same thing that you're saying. Like when you first start it, you're like, I feel like an idiot. But once you get into the habit of it and it's normal, it can have really positive effects. So
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
yeah.
I
I'll
would
grab it.
love to circle back a little bit on confidence coaching and I guess what it took you from leaving your job in computer science to becoming a confidence coach. What was it that you were doing to build your business and to build yourself up to a place of being able to be a coach, I guess?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I did not take the approach of like the smart approach would have been, hey, plan my exodus and or my exit and save enough money, get everything, go take a incubator for entrepreneurs because I had never been an entrepreneur before. Go take an incubator, like figure out what it is, all the pieces. I did not do that. Totally burned and learned. Okay,
Mhm.
I knew, but I had the urgency of like I could not go to work every day anymore.
Right.
It just couldn't. So I did learn a lot by trial and error, but I would also say that took the approach of, as an entrepreneur, it's different from when you're getting a degree and then you're going into a job. You get all this learning first and then you go into the job. Oh, by the way, then they deconstruct what you've learned and reinsert
Right.
stuff, right? Whereas an entrepreneur, you pretty much are learning it the whole time. All of it is on the job training. And there's no like education ramp up unless you go and take the different approach. So I took the approach of studying with the best coaches that I could find. I wanted to know what it was like for coaches who were already making six figures and well on their way to a million in terms of the fees they were commanding and the quality of clients they were attracting.
Mhm.
And that was deeply illuminating. I did take some certifications. I did take some classes. I hired lots of coaches, spent lots of money. I also made some mistakes of going and hiring a marketing coach. And not that the mistake wasn't hiring the marketing coach, the mistake was hiring the marketing coach too soon.
Mhm.
Trying to, didn't really know who I was as a coach, didn't really know who I served or how I served really, and not having confidence in that. And then trying to market it. And to market something you don't really believe or understand is soul sucking.
Right.
Okay. It feels like one big imposter event, and it was too soon. But I didn't know that, and I don't know that she knew it, or if she did, she was just like, we'll learn it together. And it was still a good experience. I'm just now, years later, applying some of the things that she mentioned, but only now that I have a course. I know who I am as a coach. I'm actually on the verge of definitely, I'm stepping into a new space where I've grown and it's time to expand into that place too. That's one thing I love about entrepreneurship is that, and it's like this, I guess, in other industries, disciplines, careers, but it is continual growth. The distinction for me in my mind is that entrepreneurship is one of the greatest self discovery journeys you can take. I think it's up there with motherhood because parenthood teaches you so much about yourself, right? And I think entrepreneurs up there, not the same, obviously, and no offense to moms, I'm just saying analogously, in an analogous way, I think it's in terms of self-discovery, it's right up there with those quintessential life experiences that you just learn so much about yourself in the process.
Definitely. Let's talk about obeying your purpose, the title of our podcast today. So, for anybody who may just be realizing that they're not living their purpose or having a moment that you had when you realized, I need to make a shift, what's your advice to them on following that purpose? I mean, I think it's easy to say very like as a blanket statement, like obey your purpose, but what does that mean?
It's not something it's so highly individualistic,
Yeah.
everybody's journey. And I think that's what I really love about humans is that we are the ultimate snowflake effect, right? Like each of us of the same, but very different.
Right.
So it's not something that's formulaic, but I would say that if a person is noticing oftentimes the awakening happens in traumatic or deeply emotional experiences, losses of varying degrees, illnesses with ourselves or with others, and dreams too. There's a sense, there's a feeling, there's Oftentimes, and this was true of myself, there was definitely, I remember writing about, before my husband at the time told me he was leaving, I remember writing he left, he told me he was leaving in February. In January, almost a month before, and I'd been feeling something, but I couldn't figure out what it was. Almost a month before, I remember writing, something bad's about to happen. I can't figure out what it is. Somebody's gonna die. Something's gonna happen. I didn't realize I'd written it. I went back like a year later and was like, oh, you felt that.
Right.
And not like I'm a prognosticator of any sort. I'm not a prophet, but the signs are always there. We're just not always woke to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if a person is going through a traumatic experience or is feeling that their body is calling for something else, not sleeping, dreams really erratic, we tend to eat not well when we're stressed, and when we're trying to cover the emotions, that whatever we may be feeling that we don't want to experience, we're trying to cover that with something. We tend to go to bad food, bad alcohol, some kinds of drug. That could be sex. That could be so many different things that we try to cover it with. And if I would say, if a person is noticing that they're trying to cover, if they're noticing that they have a lot of habits that are not serving, that's actually a good place to say, hang on, let what would it take for me to get clarity here and understand what my feelings and what my body are informing. And from that place, you probably need help. Ask for help,
Yeah.
right? On what you're feeling and thinking, especially if a habit just has a grip on you. Any habit, it can be, and it can be good habits. Sometimes I have a friend of mine who's also a coach, and he said I would fast for 30 days. He said I would juice cleanse for 30 days. And that was his way of punishing himself. And it would just become, it was kind of like he was kind of like a dog with a bone. Like, how can I find healthy ways, air quote, to punish himself?
Right. Right.
And it was a strange thing, because you think of, it's not just destructive things. Sometimes they're destructive, but we're very clever at
Right.
hiding what's really happening. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's a long way of saying sometimes you might need help, but also to just slow down and notice your feelings, and it's always there.
I like your point about noticing your habits and whether, and it positively or negatively. Um, I don't think I've ever thought about it in that way. Why am I, well, sometimes I have, but I mean, as a general thing, like noticing your habits, and do you have those habits because you're covering up feelings, or I don't know. I just think that's really an interesting, I don't know. I'm glad you said that. I just think that's interesting. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'll ask you one more question. And that would be, for somebody who is feeling, you've mentioned imposter syndrome a lot. So if somebody's experiencing that in in whatever it is that they're trying to shift in their life and find their purpose, what is your advice to them on getting out of that mindset?
Yeah. The two things, and I have on my website, there's a little handy guide that some people can go and get, and it's free. And I specifically speak to imposter syndrome. And the skinny of it is that imposter syndrome thrives in silence, and it thrives in the negative self-talk that we tell ourselves. And I was coaching a client recently who we started to notice her negative self-talk, but I know she's a person that when she would talk with someone else who had the same challenges, same thing happened to somebody else that would happen to her, and I know she would say, it's okay. She would find the upside and find some way to comfort them and work them through it. But the same thing could happen. I'm talking about just like a computer crash, and she's not able to accomplish the things she wanted to accomplish in the day. And it was just like, I'm a failure. My life is, whatever. And it's always there in the absolutes. I never, the absolutes tell us that there's a story here, and usually those two voices are not the same. We talk to other people in one voice, and we talk to ourselves in another voice. And imposter thrives in that negative voice. So what I would invite a person to do is start to notice those two voices, download the guide because it does talk through that, and it offers a challenge for how to begin to get out of that negative headspace, and also to get to start saying out loud what we're feeling so that other people can hear us, people trusted, of course, right? Find the right person to who can hear us and help adjust that negative thoughts. And also as it helps to intercept that the silence, right? When you say I'm scared, then you don't have to worry about other people feeling that you're not competent. I feel like I'm incompetent. Okay, first, is that really true? But secondly, to surface that it removes the imposter, because imposter is all about what people find out, generally speaking. But if you just tell people what you're feeling and ask for help, there's no shame in that, right? But the hardest part is saying it.
Right.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. So if our listeners want to follow along with you and what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can reach out on frwdcoaching.com, FRWD coaching.com. And I also have started a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, to talk about just these kinds of things. And the Facebook group is called The Resonant Leader. You can find us, The Resonant Leader, just search for it in Facebook. I'd love for people to join. Myself and another leader, resident leader, entrepreneur, are leading that group. And we have just delicious conversations about these very kind of things: obeying your purpose, aligning to your purpose, imposter syndrome, these different things that help people get in leadership, not just of their business, but also of their lives.
I love it. Well, thank you, April, so much for joining us today. And I've said this to you in the first time we met and before, I love listening to you talk. You have such a way about you, and it's so soothing. And I really appreciate everything that you have to say. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Paige. It was a pleasure. So happy. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for our listeners today, we are offering a discount code at 13fitapparel.com. And it's your name, April 20 for 20% off your purchase.
In my honor? What?
So feel free to use the discount code, and we will talk to you next time, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Move More, Worry Less. If you have not done so yet, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us grow our purpose and our mission every time you subscribe, like, share, or review us. We are also available on YouTube. We are on Instagram at 13fitapparel, and you could check out our website at www.13fitapparel.com, the word 13 spelled out. We'll talk to you next time.